Okay, boys, we are finally back into the Swiss stage, and like I told you, the vibes are just different. The moment you get to these like S tier teams, they and like the ones that just basically have the confidence to understand what they need to do in order to win and like what they perceive as the best. Like you can just tell the way the approach to draft is just completely different, right? There's a certain confidence behind it. Their priorities are just like we believe in this, and like this is like you're gonna play on our terms, and you can just tell. Like Mad Lions, they had they had a bit of a benefit from being able to play on stage already from the playing stage, but I mean when you just have a priority like this and when you just draft like this, you already know it's a pretty interesting draft. There's actually some pretty decent responses. It was pretty interesting the way this draft played out. But all in all, I do think teams like BLG are just going to create a lot more threat, and they're going to get you thinking a lot harder. They're going to punish you really hard on some of these drafts versus like what some playing teams are. Right? They're a little bit scared. They got nerves. They want to play safe. They want to draft safe. Right? But a team like BLG, no. So let's hop in. Right? So a lot of 80 carry bans. Let's say bot side bans because Ziggs and Ezreal were both banned here, and then BLG opened with the Vi on one. So what this does is basically it guarantees specific engage for BLG, and it's basically something for MDK to chew on for the rest of the game, right? When they're drafting, it's like limiting their options. It's not necessarily inherently good by itself, right? It's not a counter pick. It's more like a hey, so like when you're drafting the entire game now, you're gonna have to think about these options, right? Like wait, you can't. There's certain picks that you can't really go for. It hedges against certain things, right? MDK basically go for like a default sort of draft as an opener, right? Skarner's been the primary pick in play-ins, and I think it's still going to be good. However, I won't be surprised against like really good teams that his priority might fall off a little bit from like a pick or ban B1 to something more like yeah, we'll pick him in first phase if it's up, but we're not too pressed type of beat. I want to point your attention to the Gnar on 2-3. The RE is pretty like I would say standard. Let's put it that way. I think Chinese teams they draft with a certain aggression. So they, of course, like other teams might go for like Orianna here, but a team like BLG is like, nah, we're just gonna go straight for this. I could easily see a LeBlanc here as well, if Knight wanted to, but yeah, I would say it's not. It's more of a stylistic thing, and I think it fares well into this Syndra matchup as well. And the reason I say about the Gnar is that it threatens the pre-counter into Cassante on 3, right? I think they've studied a lot about like what the current top laners are, and honestly, there's not that many. What have we seen? Cassante, Renekton, Jax, and Rumble, right? That's pretty much all we've seen. I won't be and I believe there's like maybe one Camille game, and if you think about it, and out of all of those, who has the most favorable matchup spread? It's probably Gnar, actually, because a lot of the counters to Gnar are probably they're not really prominent in this World's meta right now. And, it's basically getting a free pick on blue side, a free counter pick on blue side. It's pretty smart. So we continue to see even more 80 carries banned. I think it's like 7 of them at this point, which is pretty crazy. BLG, since MDK did not indicate too much about what type of comp they wanted to play, they end up banning more backwards options just in case, because their comp does lean a little bit forward, although they can opt for whatever. This Tristana pick is actually pretty smart because of the fact that it's one of the only AD carries remaining that would probably be able to buffer it can actually buffer the Vi RV combo, and it actually is able to stop it. Conveniently, it also manages to counter the Kai'Sa that BLG are going for, right? I don't think MDK would have wanted to go forward themselves against a comp like this because it seems a little bit hard to get that lockdown with the champions that they've picked. They would have needed like a Vi themselves in order to really do so, and there's not much they can really adapt at this point with top jungle mid. So they could have, yeah, that's pretty much all they got. They could have also picked support on 4 because they probably would have needed a facilitator support anyway with a comp like this, but I digress. Yeah. So when we get to this point, you can kind of see like, yeah, although MDK had like quote unquote got what they wanted, you can see how BLG's just the thought of BLG's threat kind of changes the game of this sort of draft dynamic, right? My biggest issue with this draft is that it's just it doesn't do much. Let's put it that way, right? All the champions are individually not bad, right? As part of a cohesive comp, right? You can go scrub through each champ. You're like, maybe except for Trist, but you scroll through each champ. You're like, that's a pretty good champ. You know, it would work. Kasante's pretty good. Skarner's pretty good. Syndra's pretty good. But it's like, it doesn't give them the tools to really garner any advantage in draft. That's probably the biggest issue here. And this is how Chinese teams like to draft. They just like to have all of the aggression, all of the tools to garner as much advantage as possible. And that's probably what got them the most here. Because, one, BLG managed to cheat a couple of picks and kind of force MDK into a specific sort of draft. And also MDK opted into allowing literally every single AD carry to be banned, pretty much. And there's not too many options left. Alternatively, if they wanted to continue to hold the AD carry, I believe another decent pick could have been the Sivir or something at this point. Like we're grasping at straws here since there's like 0 champions left, right? 7 AD carries are banned here. Let's keep in mind, guys. So there's really not that many options left. You could have went for something like the Sivir. I think Trist is a little bit too garbage, my personal opinion. And you have to pick a champion that fares well into things like like Vi Ari. So really, you're dipping into the dumpster bin of like 80 carries at this point, and you know it's a little rough. Let's put it that way. They could. So maybe if we were to give some feedback, both teams, or maybe more so MDK, they could have swapped Kasante on 3 to maybe something else to get a counter pick on Gnar versus like versus just like allowing the self counter. But if they really wanted to, and if they decided that as a team they want Merwin to play weak side, then perhaps they could have just picked Kasante on 1-2 along with the Syndra, and then they could have more flexibility in jungle so that they can adapt accordingly, right? At this point, it's basically their game to lose because their champs are the ones that like are more stable, and like if the game was more stable, they'll get ahead. But this team won't make it stable, right? So that's basically how it goes in this draft, and you can just tell. So the Swiss stage, the drafts are hitting a little bit different. So I'm excited to take a look at a few more of them. So hopefully that makes sense to you guys. See you in the next one.